Happy Doctor Who Day, everyone, and welcome to the 183rd episode of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 23rd of November 2016 and featuring Class Detained, written by Patrick Ness. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and I just might beat the kahuna of Akala Island by the time we finish this podcast. With me are Mad Matt Winchell.
I just finished recording the last episode of BioShock.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
I called it, by the way.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Miles Reed Lobato.
My detentions in school were never this interesting.
I
Tim
agree
the
to that.
Enchanter- Tim the Enchanter will not be with us this weekend because he's taken his TARDIS somewhere in time and space for Stuff Yourself Day. At least I'm assuming that's the reason. But we do have his thoughts on the episode.
All right. All right. So, let's just get right down to the news, as we have actually quite a little bit of news. I mean, it's all lumped into specific areas, but we have a bit of it.
Speaking of which, did we cancel the first birthday or not?
No, we did not.
Okay, so we're keeping that.
Yes. Apparently you were gone to get a drink when I made that statement.
Apparently. I announced that I'm going for a drink and people forget.
All right, so first we have actress Miranda Raisin, who played Constance Clark in Big Finish and Tallulah from season 3 of... actually, I think that was the Christmas special, wasn't it?
No, that was the Dalek two-parter.
Daleks Take Manhattan, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, the name sounded familiar. Okay. Yeah,
she was the one with that
horrific
fake, Brooklyn accent.
That horrific accent.
Is
Yes,
it Brooklyn?
indeed.
It was some.
It was attempting
New
some
York
sort of New
blend
Yorker
fake
accent. Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
It was a Brooklyn accent, but it was a bad Brooklyn accent. It
Right.
sounded like every cheesy Brooklyn accent you've ever heard in bad movies, in like B movies.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is technically what you come to expect anyways, so meh.
Either way, she turned 36 on the 18th, which was
Friday.
Friday. Okay, thank you, Bill. I was trying to look, but my calendar was being very slow and popping up. She is currently working on pre-production of Murder on the Orient Express, which is a actual film version of that story.
And she's the Sixth Doctor's current companion, so still putting out audios from time every so often. That.
All right. Also on Friday was Stephen Moffat's birthday. Stephen turned 55, and of course is busy working right now on his final season of Doctor Who. And I can't remember. Is there any Sherlock actually going on, or did they just do one this year?
Sure, I think there's a season starting on January 1st, but I don't know if it's going to be the usual 3 episodes or if it's going to be something different.
Okay, so he's got both of his shows going right now. So he's got to be kind of ragged out right now.
I just hope he doesn't botch this season.
Hell, yeah, it's his last season, so...
If he botches this season, he'll go down as the last memory of Moffat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Also, on the same day, we have Trevor Baxter, who played George Lightfoot in the 4th Doctor serial Talents of Wang Chiang, as well as 13 seasons of Big Finish audio. He turned 84 on Friday. I'm pretty sure all he's doing at this point is Big Finish. Because
For the most
And I'm
part.
pretty sure they have a permanent booth installed for him at this point.
They got his own special booth with his own special chair cushion.
Okay, moving on to Saturday, we have 2 birthdays. One of which is Catherine Kelly, who plays Miss Quill in Class, which we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like that's all that Catherine Kelly has going on right now, but as it's a series work, that's not too surprising. Then we also have William Russell, who played Ian Chesterton back in the original couple seasons of Doctor Who, 63, 64. William Russell turned 92 on Saturday. And I believe he is absolutely retired. The last thing he did was play both Ian and the First Doctor in Light at the End, which we actually considered to be one of the best portrayals of the First Doctor that we had heard for a while.
Very much
And
so.
that includes
he's played them both since then. But he alternates First Doctor stories with Peter Purves most of the time. So I don't know how many he's done.
His First Doctor's better than Peter's.
I agree.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure that's all he's doing these days, because at 92, you're not going to want to do much.
Right.
Except for maybe very short cameos.
I don't know. Some people, well, actually, that wasn't 92. I was going to say put out a heavy metal album, but wasn't quite 92. I don't think.
No, he was in his 90s, wasn't he?
At least 80s.
I don't know. I'm not going to go look it up right now. Anyway, so moving from Saturday, we move on to Monday, where we had writer Malcolm Hulke, who was the writer for the second and third Doctor era. He would have been 92, except that he died in 1974 at 54. And then finally, today, we get to say happy birthday to Michelle Gomez, who plays Missy in the last few seasons of Doctor Who, who actually turns 50 today. So happy birthday, Michelle. Happy 50th.
Yay!
Ooh.
She's 3 years to the day younger than Doctor Who.
Yeah. All right, and that takes us to what's going to be the bulk of our news, and that's episode news.
Woo! I'm a star! All right, so BBC America has just released a full-color version of Power of the Daleks, episode 1. So that is viewable now.
I watched it.
Mm.
But since I didn't pay to go to the theater, I have to wait a week between every episode.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait till it's all out.
Here's a question for you. Did you watch this off of the BBC America's website?
Yes.
How was it as far as how it streamed? I know that's an odd question, but I'm asking because I watched their first episode of Dirk Gently a few weeks back, and it did not stream well. It was really kind of low frame ratey a lot.
I didn't notice any glitches that I didn't assume were the animation. Like I noticed there were some areas where, if it was real life, people would have been like moving very subtly that I just assumed weren't animated. I didn't see any problems that I immediately, that I attributed to being a fault of the platform.
Okay. All right, so it just might have been that episode. I'll have to actually take a look at that because the version I saw in the theater was black and white. So I'm actually curious to see what the color one's going to look like, even though there's not a lot of Daleks in this first episode.
Right.
It still looks
And I
interesting.
think what Daleks you see are in a dark black and white room.
So, okay.
Okay. So, and then coming to Australia's iView will be Power of the Daleks and Dr. Mysterio, which is, of course, the Christmas special. ABC Australia will be bringing the Christmas special and the animated series to view early on Boxing Day morning, immediately after BBC's broadcast of the Christmas special. So that'll be available ASAP. And of course, the 1 hour special of the Christmas special is highly anticipated. And then we've also got nothing much else. iView is pretty much just their of a video streaming service too. So let's see here. And then after that, we have the Children in Need Christmas special preview. So we just got done watching the trailer for that.
Oh, that wasn't the trailer. I thought that was the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, the Children in Need video was a, I think, 2-minute clip directly from the Christmas special.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was definitely from the Return of Dr. Mysterio.
Yep.
But yeah.
And it was
basically 2-minute clip. Yeah.
very, very interesting.
I'll have to look at it later.
Yeah, it kind of does reveal a couple of things that we knew. We've discovered the name of the superhero, which is Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And he's definitely more of a Superman type than a Batman or Green Arrow type.
Mm-hmm.
As he's apparently able to fly.
And he's bulletproof.
And bulletproof and able to break nuclear reinforced glass. So
nuclear reinforced glass?
It's glass designed to withstand the blast of a nuclear bomb.
Or nuclear bombs.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
if you say so. Doctor Who.
And he does it just by essentially looked like he just about snapped his fingers and did it.
Yeah.
He's pretty over the top powerful.
So he very much is a Superman power creep.
Oh yeah, he's definitely would be a DC style character.
he kind of reminded me of the early original Superman stories where Superman was kind of, going against, corrupt corporate types instead of fighting superpowered villains every month.
Well,
except this one can legitimately fly and doesn't need to leap the tall building.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it actually reminds me of if you take the bad guy in here as being more of a Lex Luthor type, because this was obviously evil corporation doing something. But if this was more of a Lex Luthor type, it did hit me as more of the 90s Superman, the post-crisis Superman.
Yeah.
So, not what I'd expected when I originally heard that the Doctor was teaming up with a superhero. And obviously, at the point that they're showing this, he had not met the man before and was doing his own separate investigation because he's the Doctor and that's what he does.
He sticks his nose into things and suddenly gets neck deep in it.
Although it's literally basically like they wanted to do the Doctor meets Superman for the Christmas special, but DC told them no.
DC told them no for the rights, and they just went, fine, we'll make our own with blackjack and hookers.
Also, the Doctor scolds Nardole for contradicting factual.
What was that? I heard every other word.
The Doctor scolds Nardole for contradicting one of his factual inaccuracies.
What does he say?
The exact wording I don't remember, but the Doctor says whatever incidents they're tracking all occurred in national capitals. And Nardole's like, no, they're not. New York's not a capital. And that led Rand and I to have a discussion about whether or not the General Assembly is actually considered the UN's capital or not.
It is their main headquarters. But again, well, I guess it's the 80s, so the UN hadn't been rendered impotent at this point, but still.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on along with the Christmas special, since the theatrical showings have been so popular in the U.S., they'll be showing the Christmas special Return Dr. Mysterio in Australian cinemas as well, brought to us by BBC Worldwide, ANZ, and Charmel Films. So that will be showing in selected cinemas on Boxing Day. The same day as it hits television screens across the country. So.
Enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like everyone's pretty popular or pretty happy about that.
So it's actually coming to their theaters the same day it's coming to their televisions?
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah.
That, I wonder, I'm curious as to if we're going to actually see a TV ratings drop from previous
Possibly.
years because people are going to go see it in theaters.
Maybe,
Let's pay money to go see it in a big screen.
Yes.
Which is
I mean,
very possible.
I know I'm watching it Christmas Day this year, and I have a freaking 65-inch TV, so I'm absolutely fine with that, but
65-inch flat screen TV.
I'm still tempted, if I could scare up the money, to go see it in theaters the following Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also going to include a new kind of superhero and the Doctor Who extra. Both are supposed to be some shorts in addition to the screening at the cinema. So you do get a little bit extra.
I have noticed that they've been doing that because they had like special features and stuff at the end of Killing Joke when they showed it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And they had specials at the end of Power of the Daleks when they showed it.
They also had the special bits before the start of it for the 50th anniversary, as I recall, as well.
Yeah, but those weren't really special bits. They were, they weren't really, they were custom theater opening things. Like one was Strax laying down the rules for movies. You know, don't play with your cell phone. Don't talk. You know, don't talk loudly to the person next to you.
Crunchy screaming popcorn.
Mm-hmm. It's basically the stuff that theaters put ahead of that. Only they did a custom one with Strax. And then the 10th and 11th Doctors basically
talking about 3D,
how to use your 3D lenses, and both they did for humor, but still they were the kind of things that you would normally see. Mm-hmm. But what these have been doing is after the feature, they will show an additional 10 to 15 minute special feature. With like Killing Joke, it was a whole bit about Mark Hamill doing the Joker's voice.
Yeah.
And with Power of the Daleks, it was basically a behind the scenes on the animation, the animated reconstruction.
So basically, the DVD specials.
Yes, they're
put up
just
there
like
as a
DVD
bonus.
special features. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's only a certain amount, whereas the DVD will actually probably have twice as many extras, depending.
Probably. They only show one, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the Australian cinema outing, we will also be seeing Dr. Mysterio on the big screen in Canada. So that will be shown 26th and 28th of this December. There will be an 80-minute presentation, which will include a new kind of superhero and Doctor Who extra. So,
all right.
Same one as the other extras.
Yep. So, and then moving on, we've got the. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's no longer you, Aaron.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just went right back to my next tab, which is the competition roundup.
Oh, you're going to skip all the way past both of us. But yes, our next bit of news, and it's been a while since this actually fell on me, so I almost didn't open this up in time. But we have our blurb and photo gallery for Class Episode 7, the metaphysical engine, or what Quill did. With the gang trapped in detention and out of the way, Miss Quill accepts Dorothea's astonishing offer to help remove the Arn from her head and to reclaim her freedom. Alongside Balin, an imprisoned shapeshifter, Miss Quill travels in a metaphysical engine and is taken to impossible, extraordinary, and dangerous worlds, collecting materials in preparation for her life-changing procedure. After an emotional encounter with her surgeon and a near-fatal operation, Miss Quill must find a way to return to Earth, transformed and ready for war.
By the way, as I said in the opening, called it?
Yeah.
Well, I think we pretty much just pointed out that it was probably the scar that we see over her eye in this episode is probably them removing the iron from her.
No, that's what I was saying. You all were saying it was the same thing that Charlie had going on.
I think one or two people are saying it's the same as Charlie. I kind of fell in the, well, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I do know that both ideas were debated.
I know
right.
I was the one arguing that it was because I noticed the fact that the scar went above her eye, not just below it. So I couldn't
tell. I couldn't say that for sure because it looked like it could have been shadowed too. The images were way too small for me.
Yeah, that's right. I thought it was the same thing as Charlie.
Yeah, but I was arguing that it wasn't, and I was right.
Mm-hmm.
Called it.
So we have a shapeshifter. I'm wondering if it's a Whifferdale like Frobisher. Probably not, but that would be very interesting.
I'm kind of thinking like the mutant from last season of Doctor Who.
We'll see. I mean, we basically know what the plot of this one is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Quill has to go on this epic quest, this epic metaphysical quest to find the person to remove this thing from her. And she succeeds, and she gets back, but we don't know how. All of this is going to be, meanwhile, while the class is suffering transdimensional mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Yeah, that's pretty much.
This seems to be where the budget for episode 6 went, because episode 6, as we'll mention in the summary, was a bottle episode with
it was
a cast member not present because she was busy doing the thing in episode 7.
Mm-hmm. So they probably filmed these at the same time.
So we have we have a Quill Light episode of Class for
and
this
then a
episode,
Quill
and then
only
a
episode.
Class Light episode of Quill for next episode.
Which might share like 2 or 3 scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like Quill locking them in detention is apparently going to be in the next one.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if the last 2 minutes of episode 6 appear in this one.
Yes, pretty much identically. And it's pretty much going to be leading into the finale, which is going to be Quill's rampage, maybe?
Rampage!
Oh no, maybe something else will pop up too. You never can tell.
Or the return of
because I mean,
Cortinus trying to resolve
spoilers for the episode summary, but this was basically the end of this was Quill tendering her resignation. So she's either going to go on a
as
rampage,
bodyguard, not necessarily as teacher.
Yes,
although, quite depends on. I guess we'll find out in episode 7 what her agreement with the governors is.
Yes, that's true.
Well, there's also been some time that has passed too.
From what?
I just kind of felt like there had been a lot more time that passed.
Well,
like
time passed faster for her.
Yeah, she mentioned in the episode that it felt like a lot longer than 45 minutes for her. So,
but
she's going on a long journey, but they're bringing her back through space and time to pretty much the exact point she left.
Well, she said that they've mentioned the fact of metaphysical engine, that it's a metaphysical journey, and that does not mean that time flows at the same rate if you're doing that kind of thing. But as far as between episode 5 and this, it was literally over the weekend.
Oh, I just felt that because time didn't really pass inside the jail cell, they didn't need to eat or age, that more time would pass in the outer world.
Not
Like
necessarily.
they would suddenly get back and it would be 10 years later.
No, not necessarily.
No, at the very least, it's the end of the same day.
Yeah.
But they seem to indicate that only 45 minutes. Quill seemed to feel that it had been all day, but we don't know which is actually going on and which is true. But
yeah, it might be somewhere in between the two.
No more than a school day has passed.
Mm-hmm.
And not like a 24 hours we're talking.
And if an entire classroom had disappeared for over 24 hours, someone would have come up.
Yeah, someone would have noticed.
Yeah, they probably looked at it and gone, they're cutting corners again.
Either that or the headmistress just came down and put a little rope there and,
Yeah,
Did we already know the title for episode 8?
Yeah, give me a moment. I have it listed somewhere.
Okay, I just pulled it up on IMDb, but I wasn't sure if we already knew it.
I have it. I haven't written it down on my sheet, but
The Lost.
The Lost.
That's right. Actually, I do. Now that I do remember you mentioning.
Yeah, I mentioned it last time. I just forgot
Yep.
to write it down because I'm an idiot.
Hmm.
Faster Quill, kill.
Yeah, I'm basically wondering if she's perfectly willing, basically ready and willing to go on this rampage, but something happens that stops her from doing it, some kind of crisis.
That's kind of what my feeling is too. Is that something's going to happen, so she can't really go on her rampage.
Well, the Lost is obviously referring to the pilot of the TARDIS. Not quite sure where he ended.
We'll see, but what I'm thinking is the fact that she's planning on strong-arming Charlie into using the
Cabinet.
The Cabinet of Souls to basically wipe out the Shadow, and
That's just like Doctor Who to make the big, super weapon a cabinet.
yeah, a cabinet, a frickin' a frickin' coffin in one case.
The key is on Orion's belt. Thud.
That's Men in Black.
Although it does mean that we are once again revisiting the Shadowkin.
Other than that,
Possibly.
the pictures do not reveal much other than the metaphysical journey scenes of which we did see in the next episode trailer. So they're not really doing anything special for us.
Which I'm glad for, because for some reason when I left the tab and came back, all of the images just... When I refresh, I can't get them to come back. So
Okay.
it's a good thing I don't need to see much. I know, I think Balin looks kind of like a bounty hunter-esque character.
Yeah, other than that, we really don't know anything. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, we have these guys, they look like either bounty hunters or refugees. They look like they'd be at home on the set of Firefly. So, or Dark Matter or anything like that. So can't really tell much about them if they're, basically like interdimensional traders or something. We can't tell. Pirates, I can't tell.
Right.
Move on.
Yeah,
They're not Shadowkin. That's one thing we do know.
right.
Although there is a guy that gets beheaded that looks kind of like Hobgoblin. From at least from what we see of him, which is the back.
Yeah, we'll have to wait to see. Anyway, so Big Finish has been nominated for a Best Online Non-Broadcast Drama in the 2017 BBC Radio Drama Awards. The Absent Friends, which is the first part of Doom Coalition 3. Death and the Queen, the third story in the 10th Doctor range, which we have reviewed. And Torchwood More Than This have all been nominated. These awards have been running since 2012. Big Finish has previously won the award in 2014 for their play Dark Eyes. Also nominated in the online category is Baker's End from Bafflegab Productions, the first part of a new audio series written by Paul Maggers and starring Tom Baker as himself, alongside Katie Manning and Susan Jameson. Okay. Interesting choice of cast there. David Tennant is nominated as Best Actor for his performance in Radio 4's Look Back in Anger. The nominations are judged by experts including Alison Steadman, actress, journalist Baz Bammenboy, producer Piers Plowright. Finalists will be announced in a ceremony at the BBC Radio Theatre in London on the 29th of January, hosted by Sir Lenny Henry. Lenny Henry. God, my voice is starting to go, and it's still the beginning of the podcast. Joy.
Dude, glass of water. Makes me want to drink.
Someone else will have to do the 5-minute, so I can go get a glass of water at that point.
I was already kind of planning that I would be the one anyways, so.
Okay. So that does it for that. Aaron, you've got a contest.
Oh, now I get to read the contest stuff. Okay.
Yes, because it's next on the agenda list.
Trying to jump articles.
Trying to jump the queue.
That's what I
You
do.
don't.
Best.
You queue and you queue with honor.
I was just going for the next open tab.
Get back in the queue.
Competition roundup is as follows. All right, so roundup of competitions from Doctor Who news that the readers may enter. So we've got here a Patrick Troughton's first full adventure as the Doctor comes to DVD. To win a chance to own this DVD, simply answer the following question. Which modern series adventure is reported to have been inspired by elements of the power of the Daleks?
know.
I'm pretty sure we've mentioned that quite
We
a
have
few
mentioned
times.
this many times.
Argadis.
And
I got
inspired
a
should
cough
be
there.
more like plagiarized.
Water for that cough.
All right, please send your answers along with your name, address, and where you heard about the competition. That would be an Unearthly podcast on twitch.tv to comp-power-dvd at doctorwhonews.net with the subject absolute power ! The competition is open to UK readers only. Closing date is 4th of December 2016. Only one entry per household will be accepted.
And dang it,
again,
why
all
is it
these
always
details
the
are
easy
available.
one? Why is it always the easy ones, which are UK readers only?
Once again, all of these details are available on Doctor Who News. So we've the DVD contest for the Mind Game Saga. To win a chance at the Mind Game Saga, courtesy of Koch Media, simply answer the following question. Is that Koch or Koch Media?
I think we decided Coke, but
Okay.
it could be either one.
All right. Name the character played by Miles Richardson in previous Doctor Who spin-offs recently released by Koch Media. Please send your answers along with your name, address, and where you heard about this competition, again, at unearthlypodcast.com, to comp-mindgame at doctorwhonews.net with the subject Survival of the Fittest, with survival capitalized. The competition is open to UK readers only. Closing date is 4th of December 2016. Only one entry per household will be accepted. And our third contest will be the audio download, the Third Doctor Adventures Volume 2. This is available, of course, from our friends at Big Finish there. In order to win this digital download or a chance to win it, please answer this. Name the Third Doctor television story, which also features Bernard Hawley.
All right. I can give you a minor clue. It is not one that we've reviewed.
Okay. Please send your answer and your name with your email address. Along with your name and email address, and have registered with Big Finish. Please, where you heard about the competition, again, on an Unearthly podcast, to comp-bf3d2 at doctorwhonews.net with the subject "Not Now, Joe," with a comma and an exclamation mark in there. The competition is open worldwide. Closing date is 4th of December 2016. Note, entrants must have an active registration with Big Finish in order to be eligible to receive the prize. New registrations can be easily created on the website for free and with no financial obligation. It is also still possible to enter competitions to win BBC audio releases, Doctor Who and the Day of the Daleks, and Tales from the TARDIS, open worldwide with the same closing date of 4th of December. And of course, there's a link to more details on those competitions on Doctor Who News.
All right. And that will take us to our last bit of news, the Big Finish. Our Big Finish weekly release and upcoming news, and that's you, Bill.
Yep. So our first bit is out now, which is Unit Silenced, which not long ago we covered the trailer. Written by John Dorney and Matt Fitton, it stars Gemma Redgrave, Ingrid Oliver, Warren Brown, and James Joyce, and features the new or the modern Who unit crew versus the Silence. We were a little concerned about this because it seems to be set well after the defeat of the Silence, and yet, at a point where the TV show would have indicated that they would have become inactive due to already being done dealing with the 11th Doctor. But we'll see how this is. I don't know. I don't think anyone here plans to buy it, but we may look at it at some.
Mm-hmm.
I can only accept it if it happens between Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor. That's
Pretty much
the only time I could see that particular crew and the Silence still technically possibly being active. If it's happening modern times, no, screw them.
Moving on to our upcoming news. Again, we do have more news on Unit. Last week, we covered the fact that Unit Series 4 of the current set would be called Unit Assembled and would feature Joe Jones, John Benton, and Mike Yates alongside the new crew. The official announcement of that is out now, which includes the fact that the enemy that they are facing is the Silurian race, played by Richard Hope and Nev McIntosh, who appeared as the Silurians in The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Still no news as to whether this will be a single timeline featuring older versions of the classic actors working alongside the new actors, or whether it's going to be a now versus then scenario.
I would also add that I'm seeing a Sea Devil on that cover.
Oh yeah, there is a Sea Devil on there.
Oh yes.
Which makes me raise an eyebrow.
Why does that make you raise an eyebrow?
It's kind of unusual to see that old outfit right next to their cousins who are now modernized.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, but considering this is for an audio, they're just using existing art, so
kind of,
right.
sort of.
The gentleman in between the, I believe that's Katie Manning there, in between her and then the third gentleman on the left-hand side, the guy in the middle looks like his face has been badly cropped from a different cover.
Kind of does.
It looks pancaked.
It is possible. I did think it looked a little off, but I haven't seen modern photos of these actors.
Yeah, that's also true. I haven't seen Benton or Mike in a long while, so maybe it is accurate, but it just looks a little odd in this particular photo.
I don't think so. I think there's something weird going on with that. He looks like he doesn't have the back of his head.
I mean, I am seeing that John Levine does have a rather thin, long face, but it does seem even more so in this image. So it might be when they put it together that they kind of over squished it to fit everyone.
It could be that they're trying to make it look more like Benton, and Levine doesn't have as thin of a face anymore. He might be one of those actors that hit a certain age and just kind of bulked. Because I've seen a few of those where it's like that can't be the same person, so they might have tried to digitally squish it a little and overdid it slightly.
I'm actually looking up John Levine really quick.
So am I. This serves me.
The first photo that I get when I look up his name looks kind of similar to that photo, but this one here does look like they kind of squished it trying to fit everything on.
Yeah, actually, he does have a kind of long head nowadays. longish looking head. So it's not that off, but it is a little odd.
It does throw me off a little that neither Yates nor Benton is in a very identifiable military uniform, although it's possible that what Benton is wearing is that. It's a little hard to tell. But I'm wondering if they're both retired and called back as consultants or something.
Yeah, pretty much what I'm thinking too is that they're obviously
Well,
they're not part of the unit anymore.
I actually
regularly.
think that's right. I think because the modern uses of the Silurians have not involved unit. I'm thinking if the unit has to deal with the Silurians, they're probably calling them up as people that were there with the first encounter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're there. And that would make sense from a story reason. They can't get a hold of the brig. The brig's dead. They can't get a hold of Liz Shaw. So they get a hold of Benton and Yates, who were both part of the unit crew at the time.
By the way, since we're looking at the photo, there seems to be a fleet of pterosaurs in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how that features into unless the Silurians kind of froze them as their pets.
They have been known to keep dinosaurs as pets.
Yes,
right.
Bill.
So yeah, they might have put them into.
Bill, you
cryo.
remember dinosaurs on a spaceship? That's the reason why they were there.
Yeah, and if you remember Doctor Who,
I couldn't remember if anything like that appeared in Hungry Earth, etc.
I don't remember if they had them in that, but I know they had a T-Rex as a pet in the original Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Yes.
Which actually was its name.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Hulk does like his giant reptile.
So,
moving on, since we spent quite a bit of time on that one, we have some news on the next First Doctor Companion Chronicles set, which will be released in June of 2017, and will feature Maureen O'Brien as Vicky from the 60s, Robert Hands as Lagrange, and will be written by John Pritchard. Blurb. Okay, the blurb we have here is the TARDIS has brought the Doctor back to revolutionary France, a place that has always fascinated him. By the time he, along with Stephen and Vicky, are drawn into a devastated land, caught between the soldiers who are burning all before them. Oh, sorry, but this time he, along with them, are drawn into a devastated land, caught between the soldiers, burning all before them, and a monstrous shape that follows in their.
and we lost Bill.
Did we?
Just you.
He falls in there.
There doesn't seem to be much more to say about that one, other than that the First Doctor does love to return to the French Revolution or just in general the Napoleonic era.
He does love the French for some reason back in the day.
I actually just recently listened to I think it might have been the first Companion Chronicles ever done, which featured Napoleon, of all people. So.
Yeah, and you remember the fact that that was actually partially canonical, because the fact that the very first episode, Unearthly Child, Susan is talking about inaccuracies in the book on the French Revolution.
Yep.
And she knew the inaccuracies because she was there. So yes, this would technically be their
and
second.
And they ended that season with an episode set in revolutionary France, featuring Napoleon.
Featuring guest appearances of Napoleon, yes.
He keeps coming back to the French Revolution. He has to worry about stepping on himself, really.
Yeah.
At some point, yeah.
Okay, so that will take us to the final upcoming release, and one that I'm personally looking forward to.
Yes. And people kept assuring me that this wasn't going to happen because Tom Baker doesn't do big things involving other doctors because he only does what he feels like it. But Tom Baker is now signed on for Classic Doctors New Monsters Volume 2 in Night of the Vashta Narada. Is the writer mentioned on here? Unfortunately, he will not have a companion, which this box set series traditionally has not had companions. I would have loved to see the Doctor and Leela against Vashta Narada, but we'll have to
that
settle
would have been
without
epic.
Leela. Yeah.
But still, people have gone on and on about Stephen Moffat's Weeping Angels. It's lovely. I want to see the Weeping Angels and Weeping Angels. I wasn't that thrilled with the Weeping Angels.
Mm-hmm.
But I freaking loved the Vashta Narada. I wanted to see them. I really thought there was a lot more potential in that as a monster than the Weeping Angels.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this was written by John Dorney, and they actually do mention that it's a story that would fit in with the Hinchcliffe era.
Yes,
which was my thought as well.
And so I have wanted the actual TV show to bring back the Vashta Narada, though I was afraid because of Moffat's inability to keep his monsters within their own continuity.
Yeah, they would have become a running gag about skeletons asking who turned down the light, even though that was not actually part of the monster mythos.
Not to mention, as Moffat tends to do for his own creations, they'll start getting power creep, just like the angels.
That's what I was referring to, yeah, and they'll start losing what made them scary in the first place.
Yep.
And so I was I still want to see the Vashta Narada tackled on the TV show. I just hope it's like in series 11 or later.
Yeah. Pretty please with sugar on top. Don't ruin the Moffat.
But
although I feel like the Peter Capaldi Doctor is a little too cocky for the Vashta Narada to be effective.
I don't think so. I think he's smart enough to see it as a threat and not take it so flippantly. Because he's known to buckle down when there's an actual honest-to-God threat. And only become flippant when he has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. Either way, it's just something I would love to see them get back to. The fact that we're getting it on Big Finish is great because the Vashta Narada actually has no physical form. So it actually will play great for radio. Because you have to, tell people, watch the shadows, that kind of thing. Yeah. And that will work in this form of a radio drama. A lot better than the Weeping Angels do, which don't speak and really don't have much of a movement sound either.
I think that the only time that they do speak is an episode in which their entire power set is changed to allow for that, and we're pretty sure universally frustrated us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that does wrap up our news. I do have one other thing, a release from last week that I wanted to talk about, or at least a miniseries that wrapped up last week, which was the comic series Supremacy of the Cybermen. Before I'm going to try to talk about that non-spoiler. Has anybody else been following this?
No.
So, without really giving any plot details, it's essentially a 9, 10, 11th, and 12th Doctor story, but it's kind of handled in a way as if, remember Name of the Doctor, the Series 7 finale?
Mm-hmm.
The multi-Doctor aspects of that are as if, imagine if every 15 minutes they showed the Great Intelligence clashing with a past Doctor. That's sort of how the past Doctor things of this are. You kind of see what's happening to the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors, but they don't actually have a role in resolving it at the end. And there's actually very brief moments where you see the 5th Doctor and I think the 7th Doctor just literally on one panel showing that they're going through the same sort of situation. So it's kind of happening to all the past Doctors. And then the 12th Doctor ends up resolving the whole thing. It was started by a 12th Doctor enemy, ended by the 12th Doctor. It was rather reset button-y, which is a problem that tends to frustrate me, or tends to happen to various degrees of frustration depending on how well it's done in multi-Doctor stories that are not on TV. And altogether, we've mentioned the art a little bit, and some of the art looks pretty good, but some of the faces they just could not nail even remotely close. And I would say the combination of how it ended and the issues with the art prevent me from giving it higher than a 3.5. I want to give it something more like a 4, but those two issues are too strong to keep it from getting.
And that's really been my problem with a lot of the comic adaptations. is
Yeah.
that a combination of poor artwork and kind of hinky writing makes it less than enjoyable for me.
And I think
And
part of the
this
reason it was
goes
a
back
reset
to
button.
This
Sorry,
has
go
gone
ahead.
back to the 80s on me sometimes, because
Ah.
I used to read the old like Marvel Doctor Who stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it was kind of like really kind of WTF-y.
And
It's
this
such a
does
shame because the cover artwork is actually really good for all of these, and they even have
Yeah,
multiple
but you see,
covers for this run too.
that's what comic books do.
Yeah, cover artwork is usually by a different person than the internal artwork, and often doesn't even feature the events, even going as far back as the 50s.
Yeah, they actually pay
40s.
the cover artist about the same amount that they pay the other person to do the entire inside comic book.
Mhm.
Because they know the cover art's what's going to sell it.
Yeah.
It's really kind of a scam if you look at it.
I will say that the early issues involved some massive changes that, could not have helped but conflict with future episodes of the show. So I can see why they would have wanted to at least reset button some of it, but I do think it was that aspect was kind of handled a little too jerkily for everything else, and it would have been nice if they had at least eased into that reset.
Ooh, nice.
And
The third book has a 80s Cyberman cover.
it is
One of them has a Lego Cyberman cover, although I know they each have like 5 different covers.
3 of
and
them,
that
as
is,
far as
by
I'm
the
aware.
way, an issue with most television to comic book adaptations or movie to comic book adaptations is the fact that what you read may be negated by the next season of the television show or a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know that both Marvel and DC had that problems when they had the Star Trek license. Is they would be writing a plot line and then a big grand high no would come down from Paramount, and they would have to abandon it, and that really got them frustrated, which is why you kept seeing the license changing hands. And I mean, really, comic adaptations for things like Buffy, who's off the air and no movies planned, is one thing.
Speaking of which, Buffy season 11 started today.
In comics, yeah. But trying to make something for an actively updating show or actively updating franchise is always going to cause issues, because you have to write very carefully, otherwise you're going to be invalidated by changes in continuity.
And this is a little different from Big Finish in the sense that Big Finish at least knows where all of their doctors are going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
The comic writers don't have that luxury.
Correct.
So whenever
Which is
they make
also
a big
why
event,
Big
they
Finish,
have to pretty much wipe it. Otherwise,
Yep.
it's going to be wiped anyway.
Yeah,
which
and
is
that
why,
was
which
also
is why Big
that
Finish
was all,
did not get the they didn't get they're not using characters like Missy or like the modern Rassilon or even really a lot of Vastra and Jenny, etc.
That's because they kind of wait till this little moratorium has passed before they even approach somebody. Even
Right.
now that they've gotten the new Who license,
Yeah,
they wait a few years and then give them a call.
If Torchwood came back on TV right now, Big Finish would either probably stop doing any Torchwood, or they would go straight back to season 1 things.
Correct. Yeah. Also, I will suspect that we will not see the 11th Doctor do anything on with Big Finish until the 12th Doctor has stepped down.
Mm-hmm.
Except for maybe like major events, like when we had the 50th anniversary, which did not feature Matt Smith, but did feature the 11th Doctor. But something of that scale where they're doing a big multi-doctor thing that he has that he has to have a role in for it to be effective.
But if you think about that, even those with theirs, they had a reset button in the storyline. And that's when you're writing for a current, you kind of have to, or
right.
It's not going to make a lot of sense.
I do think the Time Machine pulled off their reset button better than Supremacy of the Cybermen.
The Time Machine?
Yeah, that was the doctor, the Destiny of the Doctors featuring the 11th Doctor with the insects from the future.
Okay. I barely remember that. I know we've done it, but it's been a while and my brain is not recalling it too well. I'll have to relook it up because I probably have it somewhere or can get a hold of it from somebody. Either way.
Anywho. Anything else?
Next up is the 5-minute challenge.
And you said you were going to do it, Matt?
I said I was pretty much thinking I was going to be prepared for doing it, yes.
Okay, Bill, can you pull a stopwatch up?
I will also pull up a stopwatch for the stream.
Actually, do I have a stopwatch?
Just open up a tab and Google search stopwatch.
It is literally right there.
Yep. Oh, I see. Google has its own stopwatch.
Yes, it does. So if you can take care of that, I'm going to get that glass of water. So be right back and go to it, guys.
So I give you a countdown, right?
Yep.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Miss Quill starts off the episode of class by locking all the major class members into detention for various reasons we don't discuss outside of Ram. Actually, no, it wasn't the Ram, it was the Prince she locked away because he was 3 minutes late for class. She does literally lock the door and leaves them there, but as they're unlocking the door just to help the Prince because apparently he has a issue with small spaces, a meteor hits one of the rifts at Coal Hill School and suddenly knocks all the kids into a pocket dimension. They spend the next couple of minutes discovering a chunk of the meteor, finding out that it is technically a part of a criminal that has been locked away in the middle of nowhere, technically inside of an asteroid, and they continue to try and figure out what to do by asking it questions because it can only tell the truth because it was put into a truth machine as well. By the end, due to the will of the Prince alone, he finally forces it to take them back, but also admits to something, I think, and it tries to swallow him back up as the new prisoner, but suddenly the meteor chunk is shot and splintered and destroys the machine that was trying to re-imprison him. And we see Miss Quill has a scar on her face and much longer hair. She says she's had a very long day, to which they're like, it's only been in like about 40 minutes. What are you talking about? She's like, oh, has it been that long? And we end our episode there.
All right, you completed that in 1 minute and 34 seconds.
Very easy explanation. It helps that it's a bottleneck episode, to be honest.
Yep.
I'm coming!
Jeez. Fast. Too fast.
I said I was prepared.
Yeah, apparently a bit too much. All right, so.
1 minute and 34 seconds, according to my side.
God damn it. Stop raising the bar. All right.
Did I break the record? I think I might have broken the record.
I think you did.
I think one of the episodes was done in like 15 seconds at one point.
Oh yeah, Tim did that.
Actually, that's right. Tim completely broke it.
Tim exploded that bar.
So outside of that one, this is probably the second closest so far.
All right, so next up is what you liked about the episode overall. And I've already rolled, so Aaron, you are first. Confess!
Confess!
I actually kind of like the minimalist setting of the classroom. It's just the characters in the classroom pretty much being afraid of a rock and fighting a rock the entire time.
I'm talking to a rock.
Yep. But I think it's done well enough that it really kind of conveys a mystery. It focuses on, building, which is really great, and what else? It's it proves that the show didn't need too much, at least for this episode, to kind of carry a good story, I think.
This, by the way, is pretty much a quintessential bottle episode.
Mm-hmm.
you have no one else in the entire thing but the main cast, one set,
Literally
and
one
I think
set,
you
no
saw a
extras.
hallway. Yeah, that's what I meant by no extras. That's what I mean. That's the entire cast is the main cast. One set with, I think, a hallway you see in the beginning, and you see a side shot of it later, and that's it. Amount of the only thing the budget had to do was there was the scene from space with the rock and the crack opening.
Mm-hmm.
So they did need a little bit of a special effects budget, but compared to the rest of the shows, it was pretty minimal.
Right.
That, and they also had to throw some money at the prop budget because big glowy stone of doom, and you had to have multiple variants of it.
It was just recently Halloween. You could probably buy that thing at your local decoration store at half off.
I wish.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, it's not like they bought it right after Halloween, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's slightly better than a plastic or foam rock with some gel over some LEDs in it. I mean,
Well, they
really,
also had to make different variants because they also actually literally destroy the thing twice.
yeah.
So you still had to add some extra propage to it.
Still not going to be that expensive.
You'd be surprised. Depends upon what they actually threw into it.
Okay, Miles, you're next. What did you like about the episode most overall?
Miles? How long?
I think you need to restart. The
Miles,
program.
check your microphone because you are not. We can see you lighting up, but we can't hear what you're saying.
Give him a moment, folks. He'll be right back.
Trying to
All
remember
right.
the last time I heard his voice now.
Yeah.
I know it was during the news.
Okay.
So we will cut to Bill and get back to Miles.
What did I like about this episode? I guess I like that they were at least giving the impression that. Well, actually, I don't know if. I mean, they gave the impression that something was going to be addressed.
3, 2,
but that
1,
doesn't
and back in the room.
necessarily will.
Hello.
Okay, we've cut forward to Bill. We'll backtrack to you when Bill's done.
All right.
But I do like that they seem to be dealing with Charlie's whole, treat Quill as a slave thing, and the fact that even his boyfriend has issues with it, or at least has fears of his behavior, and that it seems like it's going to be causing some character development, if not being it in and of itself.
All right, Miles.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
What I liked about the episode was when you have these kind of bottle episodes, a lot of what gets put out usually kind of gets put right back in the bottle afterwards. Like every single Trek episode would have hit the reset button hard. Whereas this episode, I like the fact that all this stuff we had all the big revelations, and they're quite clearly sticking at the end of the episode, and hopefully from the next few episodes on, that what was here today, what was in this episode, has ramifications.
Well, technically, we won't see that next episode because next episode's sideways, but still. And we really only got one episode after that.
Yeah.
Next episode, but one.
We'll have to see how what it affects in the finale.
Everyone's pissed off.
Everyone's having a bad day. Okay. So, Bill, did you have Tim's thoughts on this?
Yes. So Tim said that what he liked was it was nice for once to really get a chance to explore and analyze the effects of all this weirdness on our heroes, rather than merely getting swept along with them.
Yeah, it's kind of watching the cracks. All right, Matt.
I like the fact that despite it being an obviously small prop, I like the fact that literally the entirety of the episode is based around these actors trying to do their best to act out against a rock that supposedly makes them tell the truth, even the truth from the point of view of the rock itself. And that's how they
Yeah.
start to figure out how things are working and how to possibly undo everything.
Yeah, I've been wondering how much of that truth was very negatively. All the truths were very negative.
That
So
also seems to be a thing too. Yeah, is that it would seek out the truth, but it would seek out like the bare bones, most negative side of that truth.
Right.
Mhm. So that does actually lead me to what I liked, and that is the falling out in the relationship between Ram and April. I think that was actually handled pretty well. But with everybody having bad words and feeling off about each other, it's not surprising. But still, I actually want to see where that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's gotten the next step. Now we need the final step to see where this is actually going to fall, which will be the
All
last
right.
episode.
So we go from the good to the bad. What did you like least about the episode? What made you cringe? Or what made you roll your eyes? Aaron, you're up first. Confess.
Confess. Hmm. I'm trying to.
Confess.
Well, I think it was Rom. Like if I had something that I didn't like about this episode, which is very very little that I didn't like, it would probably be Rom because of course it makes sense though that his worst characteristics really come out. The stuff that we see in episode 1 with him being a vain dick who's your typical sports jock coming out and even going into a homophobic, making homophobic, xenophobic accusations of what man would sleep with a male alien or something like that. That was pretty.
It's a
I
little less
mean,
homophobic and more xenophobic. Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense because of course The Rock is bringing out the worst in everyone, but it was hard to remember that this is a character that I actually liked in episode 2. Um,
Yeah, the fact that he just goes through that whole narcissism streak.
yep, yep. It dredges up everything. And at first I was going to say it was kind of the bickering between him and April that I didn't like, but I felt that they kind of handled it pretty well.
Yeah, the beginning of the bickering wasn't bad, but when he went into the narcissism,
Mm-hmm.
that was the point.
Yeah,
Where
it was like where he's like, you have a hot whatever in front of you and you can't bring yourself to like it or something.
Oddly, though, I've had other characters that do that kind of thing, and it doesn't bug me. I mean, I'm a huge Ranma fan, and Ranma has those moments, but having it coming from this character who has had pretty much had like a 12 on the 1 to 10 shitometer, has had his leg replaced with a cybernetic version, has been sucked onto another world, and still bounces back to this.
And yeah, he got a free leg, and his first thought was, well, but it's normal and not an Olympic athlete leg.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you got a free fucking leg. Like, you're lucky you don't have to spend the rest of your life on a peg.
It's like he backslid. Like, we had seen so much character growth with him. He'd become an actual likable person. We saw beyond the vanity and the coarseness, and now he slid back into that. It's just kind of a shock.
Yes, it is. All right, Miles, your least favorite thing.
See, I'm not sure if this is least favorite thing or least favorite scene because it was.
Well, we will do least favorite scenes later. So if it's a particular scene, you might want to skip it. But overall, somebody's acting, a piece of prop.
And I have to. Even for the universe of Doctor Who, where everything is sort of very that happened, how convenient. The whole that the rift seemed to happen at that particular moment for the Rock to go through.
Mhm.
It felt even for a Doctor Who show, a little bit too convenient.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out that the rifts are actually being controlled by something.
Maybe.
If we find that out, then yeah, I'd have to give them props, but it does seem a little too coincidental.
So yeah, that's my main sort of problem with the episode, which overall I enjoyed.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill.
I'm going to say that I feel like they didn't ramp up the tension enough for me to actually be in suspense. My biggest fear was that the characters would be bored for a long, long time before they got out of there. I never actually felt like anything dangerous would happen to them while they were in that room. Like there was any actual threat. Like they could have just kicked a stone away and ignored it and they would have just been fine. And I just felt, there wasn't enough to really cause suspense in that scenario with the way it was portrayed.
It was a physics lab. It would not be unusual for there to be various pieces of physics equipment in the room, possibly even like, say, a Geiger counter. If there had been one of those and it had started ticking away after the incident, that would have hyped up the tension a bit.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Wait,
someone could have threatened someone with a flammable material.
Mm-hmm.
Bunsen burner.
Your schools have Geiger counters? American high schools kick ass.
Mine did for certain on certain weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. My high school had Geiger counters.
I'm not familiar with every.
It wasn't a piece of regular equipment in there, but they brought it in for special occasions.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure if it was regular either, but I know for a fact we had one for sure when we needed it.
Slide around on dry ice.
I let them talk me out of honors chemistry, which I probably should have taken in retrospect, but I let them talk me out of it, so I never really got to see any of the more advanced equipment.
I after my first year in science, I did try to stay away from the science labs as much as possible. Because while, yes, we had nice little pieces of equipment, one of the things that our science labs didn't have was air conditioning, at least not the years I was there.
Yeah.
And our biology lab was right above the tar roof of the gymnasium.
Oof.
And our biology final was on like the hottest June that we had had in a long time. So it was like freaking 90 degree and I had it last period. And some of the things were, partially dissected animals for the biology.
Oh God, we had something similar like that happen to my high school.
And I walked into that room and the smell hit me. I looked at the teacher and I said, "I'll take a fail." And I turned around, walked out, and ran to the nearest bathroom. Because
to pick up your guts.
And I was not the only one that did that.
Yeah, I opted out of dissection for a reason too in high school, and that was even before that happened. That was one of the things I was worried about was going to happen. And it happened.
Yeah.
It happened because our teachers were geniuses and left them by the window over the weekend.
This was just the fact that that particular wing of the school didn't get air conditioning till the following year.
Oh, it didn't,
I think it was my 10th.
It wasn't air conditioning, but essentially roasted rats by a window over the weekend. In formaldehyde, because that just smells great.
These were fetal pigs.
But it improves the flavor.
I don't think they'll be eating them because the formaldehyde's poison anyways.
Anyway. That's why I failed science.
Anyway, where were we? Bill, did you give your least favorite?
That was mine.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's Matt.
Tim's.
Tim's first, then me.
Oh, okay. Tim is not listed on the
Yes, I know he's not listed on there because he's not physically here.
All right.
So since you
so
have his stuff, he goes after you.
Tim said he thought they could have explored Prince's supposed immunity to the stone a bit better, and I kind of agree with that. He mentions that it's not causing an increase in arousal to him, which it is to the others, and that even he's able to mentally deal with it in different ways than the others. But
He
it would have been nice
he wasn't immune. He was affected. He was more resistant, but he was having issues by the end.
He was more resilient and he was able to fight with it the longest, yeah.
And that's just different species biology.
Mm-hmm.
See, I thought it was because his claustrophobia was protecting him.
See, and it would have been
Column A, column B,
that's
maybe.
entirely possible. They could have made that they could have made that more clear. Because if you're already have an elevated heart rate, you're already on the verge of hyperventilating, and something tries to increase your heart rate, it's not going to noticeably affect your mood.
At the same time, you think that would have actually cracked his resistance more, because he has that much more adrenaline going through his system.
True.
Or what it should probably have done was make him like double his claustrophobia. He should have been dying for a way to get out of there. I mean, he wanted a way to get out of there, but not that much more than the others. And that should have been kind of amped up.
By the way, fun fact: if you're claustrophobic and in the Navy, don't get assigned to a submarine.
No.
Don't even visit a submarine in that case, to be honest.
No.
I've walked through submarines and got claustrophobic as a result. So
yes. Now imagine being that with
a whole bunch
100
of guys,
other people
and sent out there for like an entire month at a time.
Under
yeah, you can't just go out on the surface
pressures.
Whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, with several pressures worth of water between you and air. Yeah, no, you will go squirrely. I have heard stories of people that have actually opened the hatch underwater and nearly killed everybody. Because they went nuts. So the Navy is very selective about that, by the way. Okay, Matt.
So this is kind of tail end off of some of the other things that people mentioned, but I'm going to mention this in a much more broad sense because I think I have an interesting thought on it. So we mentioned that a couple of the characters that we've been liking a lot lately kind of heel-turned, and were doing some really odd things because they were getting into their rage mode. I noticed that the writing in some of their rage mode was kind of stilted a bit, and that really reminded me a lot of the first half of the first episode, where a lot of the characters were also really kind of written stiltedly until the whole Shadowkin invasion happened.
I didn't notice it that much.
I kind of noticed it a little bit again, and I'm thinking that it's mostly the writer trying to write negative things about the characters, and he doesn't quite know how to do it naturally.
I kind of just got used to the idea that the a lot of the dialogue in class just has that kind of feeling that it's not.
It's not been that bad for the last couple episodes, and this episode just kind of kicked it back in again a little bit. But it's nowhere near as bad as the first episode, but I did notice it.
Okay, so what made my eyes roll was the void outside the classroom. And the fact that it was just a flat black. If they could have done something else with it, a gray, a mist, something.
They couldn't have afforded a star.
I didn't want Starscape. Wouldn't have been good because they're outside of space and time.
Feeling than they were suggesting in the dialogue. But yeah, I'd like a mist or something would have been really enhanced the effect they were going for.
Actually, what they should have done was like the Mind Robbers, where they had that huge all white room.
Yes.
Or like was it the one with Romana and the Lion People?
That was what I was going for with a mist. And yes, that particular color, by the way. Although they didn't know it when they wrote Warriors
Warriors
Gate,
Gate.
and I think I
Yeah.
mentioned it when I mentioned Warriors Gate, is actually damn close to the mean color of the universe.
Hmm.
They only discovered it like 20 years after that episode aired.
But yeah, something along
I think
those
it's
effects.
a little more beige, but yeah.
Something along those lines would have made it maybe a little bit better, but as it was, it's not like it was horribly done either. But it could have
it
been
wasn't,
it could have
but
been done in a more interesting way.
I just felt for a Doctor Who series.
Especially since there's actually history in Doctor Who and stuff like this looking like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been nice to keep that up instead of just this flat blackness of boring.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the average color of the universe, cosmic latte. I'm not kidding.
No.
I think I've given this link to you guys before. I'm going to
You
give it
have.
again. There it is. Cosmic latte, the average color of the universe, looking about like the foam on somebody's latte.
Oh, great. The color of the universe is my life. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
There you go.
Again.
You are always looking into the cosmic latte, but remember the cosmic latte will always look back at you.
I take it your work shows the average color of the universe.
Yep, feels like a strange bit from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That would kind of be something. Yeah,
I feel like Douglas Adams would literally serve someone a cosmic latte.
But so you can consider yourself as part of an Arthur Dent joke there, Miles.
My life is an Arthur Dent joke.
Just wait for somebody to.
Well, have
try
you been
to,
so confused that you missed hitting the ground yet? Because that was
Almost.
Have you
almost.
shown up at work in your pajamas, holding a towel?
Once or twice.
Okay, so scenes that you liked, and I believe Aaron was up first,
Mm-hmm.
and with Miles on deck.
Just about ready to go to bed.
Yeah, no, you got a little bit more to do.
All right.
Come on, one more half hour. Come on.
I have to get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Probably 5:30, more likely.
We'll try to go through this fast then.
It's okay. All right. So I wrote down the quote: "A wish is the same as an action," which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I actually did not like that piece of dialogue that much. Because it means
now that I read it, it doesn't make much sense.
It would have made more sense if it was alluded to earlier in the series. Like, I can get that, certain cultures, that can be their morality. But I feel like this should not have been the first time we heard about it.
No, it should not. It seemed to be a bit out of the blue, and it was just it seemed to be, for me, ad hoc as a way for it being making him feel guilty or making him sound guilty for this thing. Because it had not come up. I loved, and I'm actually going to go out of sequence here and say that I loved the scene where he actually confessed that he had that thought in his head, because it was something, he should have had a while ago. But the fact that he manages to hold off, I loved that part of it. Mm-hmm. But the fact that then they turn around and say, yes, but I've wished it, so that's, in my culture, that's as good as deed. Because that means that they've punished people for thought, not action. You thought about killing your wife, you're a murderer, you're going to be executed. No.
It's like Minority Report, or more likely like Psychopaths, if you've ever seen that anime.
Yeah, it's a level of thought intrusion that I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, if we're lucky, they might actually set it up so that the Rhodians, whatever Charlie's race is actually called, are actually the bad people that Quill is describes them as, and that Charlie just doesn't see it because he's ingrained in that culture and that level of privilege.
You think the Doctor would have known that, though?
You would have
Yeah,
thought
that's
so,
true.
yeah.
Also,
maybe not completely.
I could see thought being the same as deed to a race of telepaths.
Yeah.
Because when you're thinking it, you're projecting that on other people.
Right.
But not for the Rhodians. No, it didn't make sense to me. Miles, your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is actually because of a music choice at the end of the episode, where when Quill reveals that she can use the gun again, it starts playing "Invaders Must Die" by The Prodigy.
Okay, not a
Which
song I'm familiar with.
it's a nice little bit of 90s dance music to get the blood pumping. They also used it for the first trailer for Scott Pilgrim, and it's an awesome song.
Interesting.
And it was a nice little way of indicating that shit might be getting real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Prodigy are an electronic music group from Essex.
Yep.
Okay, I'm wondering how much U.S. exposure they had.
Probably not enough.
Didn't they have a bunch? Because I thought they did a bit with. They had one of the guys show up in Venture Brothers.
Oh wait, it's the
The punkish looking guy.
Oh no, they had plenty of American exposure. It was they got more popularity though for Firestarter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I still hum Firestarter.
And yes, this is the one of the lead singers here, the guy with the usually the green hair and the wild eyes and everything that's kind of spiked off to the sides like horns. He did appear in an episode of Venture Brothers. He didn't speak. It was just his image. They didn't have him talking or anything, but
yeah, it's the thing. It was one of those. Firestarter was one of those songs I knew, but I didn't know who did it because it was everywhere in the late '90s.
Shrug my shoulders.
I'm the Firestarter, the twisted Firestarter. Yeah, I still sing that song when I'm feeling particularly diabolical. But that was really all I knew them for.
When I think diabolical, I think the supervillain by Power Man, but that's just me.
So they've had some exposure. It's been a while, though. It's been about 20 years. So
The 90s did end, despite evidence to the contrary.
yeah, usually these kind of things come around in 20-year cycle. There should be some 90s nostalgia going on. Instead, we're getting more 80s nostalgia.
no,
We're getting 80s, and we're also getting a little bit of 90s. I have been noticing a little bit of 90s nostalgia going around.
We're getting a Power Rangers movie next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and a lot of bands
arguably don't even talk to me about that
There you
Power
go.
Rangers movie. I saw the trailer for that Power Rangers movie, and from what I saw,
I have to still see that trailer. I'll actually have to make a react video on that.
they made freaking Angel Grove look like a penitentiary.
Jesus.
Well, it was what was it, summer school or something? So it was there. It was
Well,
where
that technically
the
is penitentiary.
Yeah.
For kids.
But I mean, they make it look like these guys are all juvenile delinquents. They make it look like they're making it gritty and edgy.
Which was
welcome to the butchering of 90s.
Yeah.
It gave me the tone of a CW superhero show.
I mean, I watched this video
Except with
and I'm like,
teenagers as the
Jesus,
cast.
is this the Power Rangers as directed by Michael Bay?
Probably.
That's
what
it
I'm
felt
expecting
like.
That's what I'm expecting after seeing the costumes in the Megazords.
The trailer had that feel. Anyway,
Yeah, I got more of a Guggenheim feel.
Anyway.
Okay, so Bill, best scene.
I'm going to say the ending scene with Quill because it felt like things were about to ramp up now, like there's really something serious about to happen.
I might have been
too. That was also the cliffhanger, but
yeah, I know it was. And then I see that they're flashing back, and I'm going, no, I want to see what happens next.
Right.
All right, Tim.
I'm like, oh yeah, Tim. What do you have to say? No. Tim says that his favorite scene was when they were all eyeing each other suspiciously with their faces in shadow. He loved that.
Oh, yeah, that little momentary thing where they're all looking at the rock.
All right, Matt.
Oh. I will mention my first pick, and then I will also say that my secondary pick was kind of the end with the prince actually destroying the rock. But my main first pick, though, is the kids literally standing around the rock, and they're literally brainstorming quickly with each other, trying to figure out what this whole thing's about.
Mm-hmm.
Because it shows it's a really good moment that really shows that the kids each have their own individual strengths and trying to suss out a problem like this.
All right. And I mentioned mine earlier was the speech that he gave right before picking that the prince gave Charlie gave right before picking up the rock.
Mm-hmm.
That his whole confession before he confessed, or before it tried to make him confess. I liked that. So worst scene. Yeah, Matt?
I was just going to say that my secondary was right after that, and it's literally him being a uber character for once in the series so far, and having his moment to shine as he destroys the thing, just through sheer will alone.
And okay, worst scene. And Aaron.
Worst scene?
Your least favorite scene, the scene that was the one that you wished got over the fastest.
I don't think I have a worst scene, to be
Then
honest.
pass.
Pass.
All right, Miles.
My least favorite scene is the part where Mateus was talking to Charlie about the Narnia books and highlighting the problem with Susan, which is the idea that Susan basically in the Narnia books gets punished for being a woman, and it referential in text can either be very good or it drops like lead weight because it feels like the writer is trying to cram in an idea but doing it in a very kind of ham-fisted way, which is what I felt about it because it took me out of the scene.
Yeah,
The whole story.
I remember sitting there. I'm like, why would you use such a difficult to explain illusion when you're talking to an alien who has no understanding of pop culture?
Pop culture or, Christianity, maybe?
I'm including
literature on the planet.
When I say pop culture, I'm including the fact that fantasy novels exist as pop culture in this context, because that's something Charlie doesn't have.
At least not.
We don't know. We
fantasy.
don't know what. Well, yeah, he wouldn't know our fantasy, but did his culture have fantasy? We don't know.
But he doesn't know in terms of literature on Earth, he doesn't know what's fantasy and what's nonfiction.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, remember Quill reading the Hunger Games going, did this actually happen?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was only a few episodes ago, and we saw
they're very much still learning.
And she's older and, presumably
arguably
a little wiser in terms of, in terms of things like recognizing things like that than he is.
Yeah, they're still obviously still getting a grip on what is and isn't normal on Earth.
Yeah, it wasn't the best illusion to use.
She's less naive than he is.
But then again, he doesn't strike me as being the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Yeah, he's royalty. They're all inbred.
Not Charlie.
Moments.
Charlie's boyfriend.
Oh.
All right, Bill, your least favorite scene.
So I'm going to say not the concept of the scene, but the way the scene went between April and Tanya at the end. And it kind of ties into what Matt says about how the dialogue sometimes feels too forced. And that's how this felt. It just felt like one of those scenes where it should have been a lot more subtle and still gotten the same point across without having to kind of ram in your face what it's talking about.
Which scene? I'm sorry.
The scene at the toward the very end, the one where I think Tanya ends up storming out of the room at the end of the scene, between when she's talking to April.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure that was pretty much meant to show the fact that the hurt was still there,
Right.
and that everything wasn't going to be, oh, I'm sorry, going back to normal.
Which, like I said, I'm not. I don't have a problem with the idea of the scene. It's just that the way the dialogue went, it felt more like they were trying to force home a point than the way it naturally would have happened.
Well, that's pretty much true of most of this guy's writing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
But
why this is why no class episode will ever be a 5 in my book.
This specific scene in particular, because that sort of scene is kind of stressful and grating just to watch for me, and having it done poorly makes it more stressful and grating to watch.
I mean, Patrick Ness, I think for me has the same problems as George Lucas. He's great at concept, not so great when it comes down to the nitty-gritty.
The dialogue, in particular.
Yes.
And he doesn't have a Harrison Ford to just say, yeah, improvise the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, going back to Star Wars, for Empire and Return of the Jedi, Lucas had someone else write the dialogue. What was it? Lawrence Kasdan, I think?
Yeah, he had somebody else write the scripts for him, but he also had situations where, knowing that the dialogue wasn't that good in the original trilogy, not the prequels. In the original trilogy, he would have times where he didn't tell them that it was actually going to be the final cut, and that they were just like, oh yeah, rehearse the lines or whatever, and they would ad lib and whatever, and he'd be like, okay, that'll be the final cut.
Yeah, I was right. It was Lawrence Kasdan who wrote the dialogue for Empire, Return of the Jedi, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So,
well, that tells you something.
He's that, and people that can't write dialogue need someone to write it for them.
I hate sand.
I mean, it's one of the
that's
things,
the thing. He should have kept that. When he wrote the prequels, he should have kept that, having somebody ghostwrite for him, or at least give them credit. And he
was trumped up on his own ego at the time. But I'm not. But going back, I mean, this was something that Joss Whedon is particularly good at.
Mm-hmm.
Is dialogue writing. It's one of the reasons that Buffy and Firefly and pretty much everything Whedon does is so properly pattery.
Although I will say Whedon, except for the Avengers movies, probably because there were other people involved, a lot of Whedon's writing, all of the characters have the same dialogue style as one another. And that's something that stands out when I'm watching his work. It's also something that stood out to me watching Gilmore Girls, that everybody had the same dialogue style.
Anyway.
Yes, but I mean, still, he's a lot better at it than what we're seeing here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Russell T Davies was decent at dialogue as well. He wasn't
Russell
as good on story, but
he's
he
not
was
as
good
good
at
at story,
dialogue.
but he could have helped punch up the dialogue on this.
Mm.
Yes, he would be great as a Lawrence Kasdan.
I think maybe it's because Patrick Ness is more of a novel writer.
Yes.
And I think it really shows.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
It is something, and
this is his first on-screen project of this magnitude.
Yes, and I don't think he was ready for it.
Yeah, he needed a little more time to cook that in the oven.
Yeah, it does seem strange because normally, like, Doctor Who seems, at least in the modern era, seems to be a property that, they're really looking only for the cut of the cloth and not your person who's just starting out. But for some reason, I don't know,
somehow Moffat got the green light. That's all I can guess.
Moffat really loved it or what, but that's what happens here.
It almost reminds me of the John Nathan Turner era, where they were basically hiring writers right out of school because that's what he could afford, and he didn't want to work with the veterans who all wanted certain demands. Yeah, and that didn't work so well for John Nathan Turner.
Nope.
So,
anyway,
where were we? Was that Bill?
That was Bill's.
So Tim's.
Yeah, Tim.
Tim did not have a least favorite scene.
Okay, so he
So
passed.
Technically, he
Matt.
passed. Um. mm, um. I have to say that I have to go with some of the. It was perfectly fine when the kids started to argue and fight a little bit, but when they got really, really vicious, you'd think that they would actually push the brakes and go, "Wait, why are we going this deep? What's going on? It's the Rock, guys. We gotta stop this." And they would actually listen to common sense. Maybe
The
it's
problem
just
is
me, but
the problem is when you're angry, you don't want to hear common sense.
that's usually why I tend to walk away instead of sitting there trying to. But you're
Except
like,
they
But you
couldn't.
can't
They
do that
were
if you're trapped in the room. Yeah.
go into a corner.
There's 4 corners and like 6 of them.
Well,
It,
not all of them were fighting
and
each
it
other all
wouldn't
the time
help because
either.
you would
But
still hear the arguments.
Mhm.
So this was not a good area where you
Although
could just,
actually, it would have been it would have worked. It would have been cool if someone like pulled out their headphones and they're like, "I'm not listening to this shit," and then they realized like their phone, like their electricity didn't work or something.
their phone was dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
still, I would argue that there should have been a more obvious Egon moment where they just went, "No, look at what you're doing, stop,"
They've
and they would
had
actually
them,
listen.
but the problem is that the anger kept building,
Mm,
and eventually it stopped working.
Yeah, because they did have a few scenes where they're like, we know this is only because we're mad and because we're under the influence of
It's
the
like,
stone.
wait,
and it
wait,
just,
no, this is angry. Sorry, and
Right.
move on. And then it just kept building to the point that it just exploded because they couldn't stop themselves anymore.
mm.
I actually thought that was better done. So
Yeah, still some of the angry dialogue still felt chintzy and really forced. So, like, why
All
the
right.
hell the giraffe idea?
So my least favorite scene is the one where I think it was Charlie decided to stick his arm in the void, and the arm comes out right next to him.
Mhm.
Because not only is that cliche, it wasn't really that well done. I personally had felt that if he had stuck his arm in the void and it was going to come back into the room, it would have come out. His arm would have come out the window on the other side, like
Mhm.
it was some kind of recursion. But it
Right.
just coming out right next to him like that, it seemed a bit Scooby Doo.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
almost
it should pop
expected
out
him to
somewhere
start
else.
waving and doing weird stuff like that because it was that kind of cheeseball moment, and I just didn't like it.
Mm.
It took what would have been a pretty serious moment and made it cheesy. It was, I mean, I could name this cliche, fun with portals,
Yeah.
So that was my thought on it. I thought that was a little cheese done.
It could have been worse, but it also could have been a lot better.
I know, but this one just, I think with that and just the random black void between the two of them, it just ate me really bad. I'm sitting here going, oh my God. Really? You're Doctor Who. You're a Doctor Who spinoff. Can't you do better than this? So yeah, that was my least favorite moment. So moving on to final thoughts. Aaron, you're first.
This one I did really kind of enjoy it. I like the minimalist atmosphere or the minimalist set, and the writing was a bit clunky, and some of the characters were, I don't know, they were kind of reduced back to their episode 1 kind of flatness that we got there, to the point where it almost completely undid whatever character growth they had. But I think overall I actually really kind of enjoyed this one. I thought the mystery of the villain involved with everything was kind of fun, even though we've seen the idea of an evil intelligence being attached to an inanimate object is kind of cliche from Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and everything. So now who here wants to see them confront Voldemort?
No, not me. Alien
Um,
Voldemort, maybe, but
They'd all
That's
die.
it.
I mean, that's kind of what the leader of the Shadow Canin. He's alien Voldemort.
Kinda.
And that kind of makes April Harry Potter. And I'm not continuing this thought concept any further. Instead,
Does that
Miles.
mean that Rom is Hermione?
Melodic Rom Ginny.
I really like this episode. I think it's actually one of my favorites of the series thus far. Because it's all about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And actually made them a bit more three-dimensional and nuanced. Yeah, I really enjoyed it for that. You know, but like with Midnight, bottle episodes is something Doctor Who doesn't do a lot of, but every time it's done it, it's really knocked it out of the park.
First Doctor Who bottle episode, I think, was Edge of Destruction.
And knocks it out of the park. And melts all the clocks. For some...
I'm trying to remember how many bottle episodes Doctor Who has actually had over
Not
its
many.
run.
Edge of
It's
Destruction
that-
was the first one. The second Doctor did that in
There's a few
Mind
episodes
Robbers.
where it's
Where there's like
bottle light, where there's one or two elements of a bottle episode, but not the others. So you can't.
and there's one or two serials where an episode of the serial is a bottle episode.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Yeah, a lot that like the first episode is because they didn't have any, they didn't have a budget for another episode, but they realized that they needed to fill another one.
Midnight is quasi bottle
Yeah,
because they had to new set the shuttle. They had to have the exterior of Midnight.
right. But they only used one set, and
Yeah, but it was primarily that used on the set and special effects. But it's still kind of quasi-bottle because usually when you do a bottle episode, you're using an existing set, and that's it. You're using completely existing materials and cast. And that's another thing where Midnight doesn't pass the bottle test is the fact that it has a whole bunch of guest cast.
Mhm.
But it's kind of hard to avoid doing that in Doctor Who because...
yeah.
Some many cast members to begin with, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the only true bottle episode I can remember in Doctor Who prior to this would have been Edge of Destruction because that was just the three mains and the TARDIS set.
And again, I mean, if you go through all of Classic Who, there's probably quite a few where the first 20 minutes are on the TARDIS and the other, hour and a half or whatever is somewhere else.
Because I was thinking like the first episode of Castrovalva, but those sets were new.
Mm-hmm.
So it fails in that aspect.
Well, like I said, Mind Robbers. That entire first episode was all TARDIS, and matter of fact, they even used the white outdoors that was normally outside the TARDIS doors as an actual set. So it wasn't even a new set, and they reborrowed robot costumes from a different show.
Mm-hmm.
So that's totally a bottle episode in the middle of the story.
Actually, it was the beginning of the story.
At the beginning of a story, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few intro like that where they do that, but I would say Midnight would count as a limited, but I would not actually fully qualify it as a bottle, but it's darn close.
Anyway,
Um,
where were we? We did Aaron.
we did Aaron, we did Miles. It's Bill's turn for final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I don't know. I don't necessarily hate this episode, but it did fall kind of flat with me, and I just didn't really get much out of it. I get what Ness was going for, and don't dispute that, but at the same time, it just didn't feel like, it felt like an episode that could have just been skipped over that was there because they couldn't afford to fill out 8 budgets rather than an episode that really did anything for me. Tim said that this was a pretty good episode with intriguing character insights. Some of the ideas could have been more developed.
All right. Matt?
I'm kind of on Aaron's area where I really enjoyed this episode. I really liked a lot of what was done in here. It was nice that they put digital visuals to minimum again. That seems to be where the show is strongest. And it would be almost perfect if it wasn't for the fact that when they get to the extremes, the dialogue starts to get a little clunky and forced again.
Yeah, I'm with Matt and Aaron. I think out of the class episodes I've seen thus far, this is my second or third favorite. But mind you, some of the bottom ones have been pretty garbage to me. I mean, not absolute cellar dwellers, but mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
I do like some of the concepts explored in this. I like some of the character development, but again, there are some dialogue fails, and some of the character development seems a bit forced on the character rather than a natural evolution. Nonetheless, I like the resolution. I like some of the character development, and it leaves me looking forward to what happens next, which is very important to a story with an ongoing plot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so ratings. Everyone here has done at least 2 episodes now, so you know the drill. So I am going to ask you in the order in which we've reviewed. So Aaron, what is your rating?
I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 4 at the very least.
4 flat. That's also what you rated Bravish Heart.
Yep.
All right.
You're not gonna
Miles.
be happy with me at all.
I think I'm also gonna have to give it a 4 flat.
4 flat. All right. Bill.
I feel like this was below average, to be honest. At least just how I felt about it. So I'm going with a 2.5.
Wow.
Tim actually, for Tim, went fairly low. He gave it a 3.5.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow, our eternal optimist.
Our eternal optimist just turned into a pessimist this episode. Hello.
Matt.
I'm agreeing with the majority. I think this is a 4. It needs a few tweaks.
4. I'm actually going to give it a 3.5. And that's only because I felt like I think Bravish Heart better. So between us, it comes out to an average of 3.6. So that will put it
Above average, but not good.
just above. Well, I don't know. It's above average for a ranking. I'm not sure it's above our average.
That's because
So
we don't have
out of-
enough basement
I
dwellers
think
yet.
our average is about a 4. So
Out of now 178 things that we've listed, Detained comes in at number 108.
Oof.
So it is below the median. It is on the same level as Resurrection of the Daleks, Full Circle, Tomb of the Cybermen, The Woman Who Lived, The Doctor, the Widow, the Wardrobe. It is above A Town Called Mercy, which I do think is a crying shame because I actually liked that episode. Mark of the Rani, City of Death, Destiny of the Doctor, Death's Deal, Destiny of the Doctor, The Time Machine. Interesting because we just brought that up earlier in the cast. The Christmas Invasion, and Jubilee. Yes, Jubilee got a 3.5 by our panel. And it is below Flatline, The Moonbase, The Daleks, War Doctor, The Innocent, Big Finish, The Destroyer of Delights. So 108, that is where Detained is. And I think that's all we have to say about that. Bill?
Mediocre.
all right. Well, if you enjoy listening to us, please go ahead and like the video and leave your comments below. And subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch so you can continue seeing our new videos. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter for news and updates. And if you want to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/unearthlypodcast or gofundme.com/MIBSpain.
All right. So next week's episode, we see the other half of this coin. And we've already discussed this. While these people are in their detention, we get to see what was up with Quill and how she got the thing removed from her head. So next week on Unearthly Podcast, it'll be the Metaphysical Engine, or What Quill Did, written by Patrick Ness and starring mostly Catherine Kelly as Miss Quill.
Alrighty. See you all next week.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.